What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran and I help people using a spiritual perspective. And this is not urine, it's apple juice. So just in case you're wondering, I'm not drinking my own urine, okay? That might be fun, but I'm gonna go ahead and not do that in my life if I can help it. Okay, so today I want to talk about the disillusionment phase of spiritual awakening. Okay, it's a quick video on that because this is the phase that is probably the worst of any of the 5 or 6 phases of a typical spiritual awakening, okay? Now, initially, spiritual awakenings typically give us so much energy and passion, and we're pushed in directions that seem exciting. They don't really seem that frightening. It just seems kind of new, and there's a lot of information, and we gather that information and knowledge, and we use it. And we use it to make our lives better, and we use it to navigate our spiritual awakening journey. Things like spirit guides and angel numbers and synchronicities and maybe meditations and sound bath therapy and going to take spiritual medicines like bufo or ayahuasca, going on retreats, taking salt baths. You ever been on a salt bath before? We do a lot of stuff, okay? We pick up a lot of spiritual stuff on our journey, and it helps us. It helps us make sense of what we're going through. There's a new experience in life, okay? But what happens at some point is you end up kind of at a wall, sort of like writer's block, maybe spiritual block, right? And you don't know how to keep going. All the stuff that used to work no longer does. And so you end up feeling disillusioned. You end up losing a communication, so to speak, with the universe. You end up losing healthy feedback from angels or spirit guides or source of the universe. Doesn't really matter how you want to phrase it. You could call it God. I don't call it God, but you could call it God if you were so inclined. So the label itself is kind of irrelevant and redundant, but the feeling of isolation, confusion, feeling like you're left out, essentially, sort of just feeling like you're not a part of anything anymore, that's very deep. It's pertinent. It permeates our soul, and it can last a very long time because it's pretty much where the culmination of all of our conditioning meets our expectations, okay? And what I mean by that is all of the things that we've built up, our spiritual ego, the little spiritual things that we've been doing for ourselves, eventually they all going to reach a point where you can't go any farther without changing something about yourself, okay? I don't necessarily mean a physical change. That might be a side effect of it, but ultimately a change within. And a change within can't really happen without an acceptance of self. So really what happens is we become disillusioned and everything on the outside stops working as much because the thing on the inside that is initially quote unquote broken, that's the thing that needs to be looked at and fixed. And usually what's broken within us is the non-acceptance of self. So in other words, what's most broken within us is the belief system that we are in fact broken. Right? Because we have rationalizations for being broken. Something happened as a kid. We were depressed, tragedy, grief, sadness, pain, abusive parents, narcissistic parents, heartbreaks, all kinds of stuff make us feel broken growing up. So that when we're adults, it's not necessarily that we're looking at ourselves as broken. We're looking at our life as broken. We're not really looking at ourselves. So we become disillusioned. And during that phase, we will do whatever we can to not feel disillusioned, to not feel confused. So we're going to keep on doing things that used to work for us but don't anymore. It could be something as simple as an addiction, okay? Smoking weed, all right? Drinking alcohol, taking pills, whatever, sleeping pills, right? It could be hanging out with friends. It could be going back to some spiritual practices that don't work anymore. Angel numbers, synchronicities, they might not fill you with the same sense of belief and hope as they used to. Same thing with tarot cards and stuff like that. It might not really do it for you because ultimately everything that's on the outside can't make up for what you feel is broken on the inside. So you become disillusioned because you reach a culmination point. You can't, it's sort of like a river narrowing. Like you really have to pass through this point, and the only way to pass through this point is to just take yourself. You can't really take your belief systems, your things, your baggage. You have to just take yourself. And if you're going to take yourself through a very, very narrow point, that really ultimately means that you're going to have to be by yourself. In other words, you're going to have to be light, right? You're going to have to just have what you have on your back, so to speak, and go through that point with just your emotions and face yourself, right? And the hardest thing to do during the disillusionment phase, but by far the most important thing to do, is to sit with your emotions, right? I just did this. It's not comfortable. It's really not comfortable. A lot of spirituality is based around the fact of not facing your emotions, and sort of like bypassing things, being as positive and optimistic as you can. But ultimately, you're going to feel like shit when you're in this disillusionment phase. And this phase might come up again and again in your life at different intervals with different things going on, right? I don't necessarily think your spiritual awakening just stops happening, okay? I mean, those of us who aren't Eckhart Tolle, anyway. But when it comes to facing yourself, you just have your emotions and your sadness. So, I don't know, like an hour ago, I just felt incredibly sad. And so there was nothing else I could do but cry. There's nothing else that you can do. I mean, you can watch TV, go on the internet, do drugs, go for a walk. You can exercise. You can do anything positive and negative on any kind of scale. But ultimately, your emotions are your emotions, and you're going to have to face them. So the most uncomfortable yet rewarding and most powerful way out of disillusionment is, facing yourself. But what do you do to face yourself? Well, you sit with your emotions, with your thoughts, and you time yourself, right? Probably a little longer than this would last, I assume. This is like an egg timer. But, maybe 15, 20 minutes, and you do it in intervals, and you see what you... So if you have an opportunity to feel your emotions, if you have the time and space and energy and courage, then that is something that you should do, because that's how you make sense of the disillusionment. That's how you get out of it, so to speak. That's how you can move on.